make this abortion doula program set apart from others. One being that it was founded by a Black woman. I know that there are some other grassroots organizations that have been founded by Black women, but I don't know that any of them are Black nurses that have worked in actual abortion care and reproductive health. And so that's one area where I feel like this program is different. Having that firsthand experience of being in the clinic and knowing what patients need when they're going through abortions, also what they face as they come into our clinics and when they leave our clinics by people that are supposed to love them. So, and that's the whole reasoning for me behind wanting to have an abortion doula program is that I feel that people, regardless of race, background, or religious beliefs, deserve to be supported as they go through life-changing events is and something as such as an important part of their life as an abortion. Um, Also, I think with Be at Peace abortion doulas, I would be remiss without mentioning Danae, because Danae has been by my side for over 2 years now. And when we were working at Planned Parenthood and I was driving everybody crazy about let's start this abortion doula program, there was no one else that I had in mind other than Danae to be by my side to help cultivate the program. And so that's another thing that sets us apart is our sisterhood, in that we are also two Black nurses that both worked at Planned Parenthood in reproductive health and went through the same traumas day in and day out, firsthand seeing what patients had to deal with just to get health care. So I feel very privileged to still be doing this work with her by my side. And that's what I see as being the most important thing that sets Be at Peace abortion doulas aside, set aside from other abortion programs.
Thank you, Keisha. I'm going to kick it over to you, Danae. What did you think when Keisha asked you if you wanted to help with the abortion doula program in 2022?
Thank you, Keisha and Khadijah. That was so sweet. I thought she was crazy. We all know Keisha's crazy. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm not kidding. At the time, like Ro had just fell. We were like in the biggest fight of our lives. And she's like, we want to start this. I want to start this program. Like, we need to start this program. And even though we that sounded crazy to me, immediately I was like, let's do it. Because I saw the vision. I knew, just like Keisha said, like how important it was for someone to, have that person for them during this fight. Like, already, it is hard to get the healthcare you need when it comes to reproductive health. So, to have the largest court system, the largest system in America against us trying to get reproductive health, the only thing that we could do was fight. And so I feel like this was the perfect opportunity for us to fight back with what we had available at the time working at Planned Parenthood. We weren't able, well, there was question on if we were able to provide abortion, if we weren't able to provide abortion, what we can say, what we couldn't say. But ultimately, that didn't change the fact that pregnant people need help. And so, whatever way that we could provide that help, I wanted to do. And like Keisha said, being a Black woman myself, being pregnant myself multiple times, well, at the time it was only one, but being pregnant myself, I know some of the things that we go through, some of the biases that we experience. And it was just, it was necessary. It's always necessary. It's having that advocate, having that support. It's always necessary. We don't ask why is starting or why is going to med school important. We know doctors are important. So the same thing with, abortion doulas. Why are abortion doulas important? We need them. We need the support. We need the advocacy, and we need to take control. And so Keisha presenting that idea is what that provided. It provided control in a time when we felt like we didn't have it.
Did you think it would be a challenge to start
Oh, 100%. Like we are in Arizona where even before Roe fell, they were trying to, attack our rights. We had the 15-week ban in place. It was going to be hard. We were not even providing abortion. So like my first thought was, how do we have abortion doulas without being able to do abortions? Like, how is this going to look? And then Keisha posed the idea of like, well, they're going to travel to Mexico with them. I'm like, Keisha, what are you talking about? We're going to Mexico now? Like, but I knew it was going to be challenging, and it was. But the challenge was worth the reward at the end. Like just the feedback we've heard, the improvements that we've seen, it was worth it, and I would do it 100 times again. And so I'm excited to be a part of this program to just continue to grow that on a larger scale. And super honored that Keisha asked me, to step in and be with her alongside growing this business.
Thank you, Danae. Christina, I want to kick it over to you. So, as one of the original members of the abortion doula program, can you tell us a little bit about the changes that have been added and why?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's been about 2 years now since we've kind of started this process. And I think we've learned a lot along the way. I remember in our original training, we really were sort of held to the standard that was set by, other Planned Parenthood affiliates. And so we sort of had a blueprint of how we wanted things, but a lot needed to happen in order to make it fit not only Arizona and what we were experiencing here and what the clients we serve were experiencing, but also, to make it fit, honestly, Keisha and Danae's vision for how they wanted to serve and support the people who were coming in. So, I think that program has changed in some ways quite a bit. In other ways, it's still very similar. Like the core of the program is to show up and support the clients and the people providing services in any way possible. And that can look really different. So I think the flexibility of what a day can look like is one of the things that we really talk and train about now when we bring in new folks. We had sort of a really specific vision of how we thought a shift, should look. And I think over time we really grew to understand that that just is not realistic for supporting, the women or the people who are coming in. So the flexibility has been a huge thing. And then I think building in a lot of structure to help new abortion doulas has been helpful. We all kind of were thrown into this process of figuring how to be an abortion doula, and Keisha and Danae had, maybe 2 or 3 full-time jobs at that point, who knows, but they were supporting as best as they could. But at the end of the day, they needed to be nurses. And so we needed to figure out for ourselves, like, what do abortion doulas need to do when they come every day? And how do we do that without, utilizing and sucking resources out of the clinic, right? So I think adding that structure, and so being able to have new doulas complete training more flexibly, so it can be online now versus just a 2-day training. So that was a huge bonus. And then the most helpful thing that I've received feedback about is we now do shadow sessions. So when a new doula after they go through training, we have them shadow an established or like a more senior doula, and we walk them through the process as many times as it takes for them to feel comfortable and confident that they can kind of go out there and do their own thing. So I think having the opportunity for people to really watch and see, especially if they shadow more than one person, different ways that you can be a doula, but that still feels true to you. I don't think there's anybody on this call who doulas the exact same way, but the goal is the same for all of us. And, I like to think the outcomes are very similar of the person on the other end feels supported, they feel seen, they don't feel judged, and we're just doing the best we can to make that experience feel as normal as possible, like as it is just a part of reproductive health care and a little less stigmatizing. So, and I think we do that really well. So.
Thank you, Christina. It's really great to hear about the shadow program that you guys incorporated. I bet that that's super effective. Juanita, I want to go to you now. You signed up to become an abortion doula. Did you realize what that meant?
No, initially I did not realize what it meant just because of my own personal experiences having being pregnant and having my child back home in New York City. I knew that a person didn't deserve to feel the way I felt when it was, time for me when I was in labor, after I gave birth, through the whole postpartum stage. I knew that I wanted to give back to other people who were experiencing pregnancy. I just didn't know what it looked like. So just scrolling online, looking up ways to get doula training. I knew a few people who were doulas, but they were kind of doing more training that they just came up with themselves, not necessarily through a program. And through that, I was able to find Planned Parenthood's training program that was implemented by Keisha. And I signed up and then started all of my whole entire process from there.
Did you know that you would be doing other duties in the clinic? How did it make you feel when these unexpected tasks presented themselves?
With the mindset of just seeing the organization initially being that it was at Planned Parenthood, I figured it just wouldn't be one of those things where you just came in, did what you needed to do, and leave. And I'm also the type of person who doesn't mind stepping in when I had to. So we would do plenty of other things. We'd assist Keisha and Danae as best as we could. We would make sure they ate, but not only that, we would also create patient bags, make sure patient information was ready to be distributed at checkout. There was even a time where a woman came in with her children, and I had to end up watching her two younger children while she had her procedure. So I think just those things, you expect the unexpected and you come in prepared to see where the day takes you.
Thank you, Juanita.
Mhm.
This is a question for the group. What is it like watching an abortion? And do you ever feel uncomfortable in the room?
Can I As start? Someone, oh, sorry. As someone who's had abortions myself, I didn't necessarily feel uncomfortable watching that. Actually, it was relieving in a sense to be able to give what I didn't have at the time. My first ever abortion was at a Planned Parenthood, not in the state of Arizona, but in New York City. But they definitely did not give the care and attention that Keisha, Danae did. And it was something that I wish I experienced. For me, it's not uncomfortable. One great thing about it, even though it was uncomfortable or even maybe more nerve-wracking for the person experiencing it, but just to remind them beforehand that they're not alone, or some people you had to like kind of break them down a little bit and make them talk a little bit and get a little bit of the feelings out and remind them that they're in a safe space. So even though for them, I'm sure as the person having to go through the process, it must have been painstaking, but to just be that sense of peace and that listening ear and that sounding board for them was more rewarding than anything.
Thank you, Juanita. Anybody else? What's it like being in the room?
I can share a little bit. My name's Jennifer. I'm a counselor. I have my profession is as counselor. And for me, being with an individual who's going through the procedure, an abortion procedure, is an absolute privilege. And I mean that in the most genuine sense. It's a very intimate, tender moment. No matter the story, no matter the reason for the individual coming in for the procedure, and having the ability to engage and introduce yourself in a very sort of gentle way prior to the procedure, and then kind of getting, once receiving permission for that from that individual, to accompany them in the room and to be by their side in this moment, and sort of just kind of allowing for that connection, is just an absolute privilege. So that's my experience. I mean, it's very tender, can be very intimate, can be very relieving. It's just, there's such a wide breadth of emotions that can flow. And so that's just, I feel, it's sort of a gift to be able to be in be in that space with someone else.
Thank you, Jennifer. I want to turn it over to you. So, over the last 3 years as an abortion doula, what parts of the program do you see as the most valuable part of the training?
The most valuable part of the training, oh gosh, so I think it's in this world of disconnect. I think for us, it's being able to connect as doulas, as we have sort of a beautiful friendship, a beautiful community. And I think that in turn then flows into the way we connect with the patients. And so I think as far as the training comes, it's kind of coming together with a shared sort of goal of being able to connect and support one another, and that then we bring into the clinic and then into the room with the patients and with the nurses and with the physicians. For me as a counselor, I do a lot of work. I'm what's called a trauma informed counselor. And so for me, being with the individual, it's sort of a nervous system to nervous system. It's that biological imperative to connect that we have as human beings. And that starts in the training because we connect. In the training, we kind of explore vulnerabilities, we explore questions, we explore concerns, we explore how we speak with one another, how we look at one another, how we touch one another or don't touch one another. And so that's kind of what begins in the training. And all of that is sort of this cues of safety that we then bring into the clinics and into the rooms with our patients.
Thank you, Jennifer. Leanne, I'm going to kick it over to you. When you signed up to be an abortion doula, did you ever think almost 3 years later you'd be a facilitator?
I think honestly, if you ask any one of us on the call, we'd probably all say absolutely. I think there's really a certain type of person that signs up to become a volunteer doula, in such a stigmatized area. Um, that's someone who really cares deeply about people, to their absolute core, and along with that comes the need to help in any way we can whatsoever, no matter what that capacity is. So in that regard, I think, it was second nature for all of us to, not only sign up to help with trainings on the old program, but also, when Keisha and Danae, started Be at Peace to also volunteer as facilitators for that as well. So I think every single one of us would say, yeah, definitely.
What motivated you?
For me, I think it's the idea of everyone out there having an abortion procedure, having the ability to have a doula there with them is kind of a dream. And by us facilitating these trainings, we're able to get more volunteer doulas out there. We all know how expensive doulas can be, and then it's just not accessible for everybody. And so by having volunteer doulas out there, especially ones for abortion, anybody that wants a doula, needs a doula, can have one. So I think really just that dream of, everyone being able to have a doula if they can, really motivates me to get out there and do whatever I can to help in any capacity.
Thank you, Leanne. I absolutely agree with you. Everyone that wants a doula should be able to have a doula. Keisha, I want to ask you, what does the training consist of?
Can you guys see me? Okay. Jennifer said she couldn't see me. Okay. Um, I'm going to answer that question, but I wanted to say something really quickly, and I'm going to be really quickly because I know Danae is looking at me. But I wanted to say something about the question that you were asking about what it's like when you are in the room during an abortion. And, for most people, I feel like everyone really is different and everybody has different backgrounds, religious backgrounds, beliefs, every type of thing, right? And so when you come into that situation, the way you approach it may be different. And I know that Danae and I had to go through training, which we incorporated into the doula program about our own personal stigmas that we as nurses, professionals that are being paid to be there, um, feel about what we see and what we encounter in the room during an abortion. And I know for me personally, I at any cost in the beginning avoided seeing any type of products of conception. I didn't want any parts of that, just because I wasn't sure how I was going to feel, because of my religious background. But what I came to learn was that, not just as a nurse, but just in general, in that moment, it's not about me. It's not about what I feel. It's not about what I think. It's not my opinion. I'm there because this patient is going through something and they need someone to be there. And I instantly think about, there were a lot of times we had patients that came in that were very, very young and were there without their mother. And to me, I could not imagine not being there for my daughter who, if she was going through an abortion procedure, because she was afraid to come and tell me that that is what was going on with her. So I think that, when you're dealing with abortion care, the best way to deal with it is just to be real about it, because everybody has an opinion about it, whether we talk about it or not. And I think, um, as abortion providers, a lot of times it's also stigmatized for us to have an opinion. Like we're kind of like looked at in a certain way if we're truthful about how we feel about what we see. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that it's okay for someone to say, I'm not really comfortable with this. You know what I'm saying? And at that point, we always tell people in the training also, you don't have to be in the room when a patient is having an abortion if you're not comfortable with that. We would prefer for you to say to us up front, I'm not comfortable with that. We're not going to judge you for it. It's just your comfort level where you're at. And so in our training, we really kind of spend a lot of time going through that and going through the abortion procedure. And I don't believe, even when patients would ask, what did it look like? Can I see it? I didn't believe in sugarcoating it. I felt like this comes out of your body. You have the right to know what it looked like when it came out, and I'm not going to lie to you about it. And so I think that being very upfront and transparent and letting people know, like, this is what it is, and then letting them to decide where their comfort level is with that. For me, I got there pretty quickly because I was able to have that transparency and think more of, when you're there and you have a patient that's squeezing your hand and they're crying hysterically, or it's very easy for you to forget about you know that stereotypical stuff and really bring the focus back on the patient. So that's all I wanted to say about that. But our training consists, I already told you a little bit. It's a full packed 2-day training. And really we probably need more days than 2 days, because it's so much information. You will not be bored, trust me. All of it is relevant. We talk about state laws, like I think someone already said. We talk about trauma informed care. Jennifer does that piece. And we also go over breathing techniques. We do role play. What else? Small talk, that you're basically being taught from scratch, because even though I think there's several different types of doulas, abortion doula is, to me, a little bit different, because in most cases, this is not how people plan for things to go. You know what I'm saying? And so knowing how to approach a patient by their body language, or just being able to fill out where they are, maybe they don't want to talk, and that's okay. But we spend a lot of time on that. I think when we did our first training, Danae and I learned very quickly, which is why I think it's really relevant when I say that, 2 nurses are running the program, is because we saw it happen time and time again, where patients would come in, their arms are crossed, they're standoffish, they don't want to be bothered. And then before they leave, they see a doula, and they see the doula with other people. And then they would, in the beginning, they're almost like, no, I'm adamant, I don't want a doula. Before it's all over with, they're begging for the doula. And so we saw it happen repeatedly. And so with our training, we really think that that's an important piece to spend a lot of time on, is talking about those things. In addition to that, they will also basically receive everything that they need to start off with. They'll have their doula t-shirt, they'll have their doula fanny pack. They'll also get a demonstration of abortion procedures, what instruments are used, that they become familiar with what's actually happening in the room. Very little talk from me and Danae. It's mostly, the doulas that are running it, because honestly, I just see myself as the visionary. I am not a doula. I am a nurse. So, and doulas, even though they are non-medical support people, it helps that Danae and I have that medical background, because then we can kind of guide the program in the direction that we want it to go, that we feel that patients will benefit the most. And so I think at this point, and I think it's important to mention that Danae and I no longer work at Planned Parenthood. And so hence is why this program was launched after we started the program at Planned Parenthood. And so what we're looking to do is to secure contracts to go into either other Planned Parenthoods or private abortion facilities and run a training such as the one that we started at Planned Parenthood. And so we're working towards that with the training. And you also will get a certificate at the end of the 2-day, just saying that you've gone through the training. Also for people that just want to get trained on their own, and then go, like a Planned Parenthood or someplace, and go in independently. So you don't have to be a part of an organization to necessarily go through our training. And to get information about that, I suggest that you go to our website, our Instagram page, or the YouTube to get information about how to register for that. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you sure did, Keisha. Thank you. Danae, I want to pass it over to you.
Sorry, I don't want to like hijack the show. I know we have questions and everything to get through, but I just wanted to touch on again the question about like what is it like to be a part of the abortion, and just everything that surrounds. No two abortions are the same. You will have two people that are both 8 weeks and 1 day pregnant, both 25, and it's still two completely different cases. Like Keisha said, she doesn't like to look at product of conception, and that's fine. To me, I love looking at it. I love going back there to see it. I love looking at the ultrasound. I just love, I shouldn't say love, that sounds kind of crazy, but I do like, it's fascinating to me that like this is what our bodies can do. And I think knowing that, like again, that takes control of what you're doing, like knowing my body can do this. This is what I'm choosing to do for myself regardless of my situation. I'm going to look at this, what just came out, and be okay with it. I think is so powerful. Also, like I said, no two cases are the same. No, you may be okay one day, you may not be okay another day. You guys all know the fertility journey that I've been on, and how I like started with Planned Parenthood and how I ended with Planned Parenthood, and just how I've had to check myself as a nurse and as, a doula program coordinator. And that's okay too. Your opinion may be different starting at the beginning of your shift, or starting at the beginning of your week, starting at the beginning of the quarter. And it's okay to go through the motions. But I think what's so special about Be at Peace and just working with this group of women is the sisterhood behind it all, because we have those hard times. We have those days where we struggle. We have those cases that are just touching to us. It may be like just one random case that you don't even think about that would impact you, and you finish it and you're like, wow, that was really heavy. But we have each other, and it's so special to have this bond to then bring to other people. And I think that is what's going to set Be at Peace apart from a lot of the other organizations, is that it's rooted in the relationship that we have built amongst each other, because that's all we had at one point was each other. When me and Keisha started this program, we had only been working together, like 6 months at that point, but you guys wouldn't know. You would think that Keisha and I knew each other for years and years among time, because that's just the relationship that we have and that we want to continue to build with our doulas. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Danae. I absolutely agree with you. This is a question for the whole group. So, what do you find most rewarding about this work, and what are some of the challenges?
I'll go. So one of the most rewarding things is when you get people who have had previous abortions and express their their absolute contentment with this particular procedure. Or I've even had clients who, within the span of time of me being there, they are going in for another abortion, and they literally said, "Oh, good, you're here." Can you please come in here with, can you please come in with me? It was so helpful last time. Or even the sense, even just within the waiting room or recovery rooms, of like, you make this feel so normal, you make this feel so not sterile and scary. And that I know is going to go out into the world with the people that they decide to tell their stories to, or if they have someone talking about, an abortion decision in their life, they can then bring that experience out into the world. And I think that being part of that positivity and changing the narrative and making sure that stigmatization gets broken down, I think that is one of the most rewarding things for me.
I think you make such a good point, Sabrina. One of the benefits of this work is that doulas help to humanize abortion and the provision of this very necessary, important, crucial aspect of healthcare. Like, it's important, like you said, that people know it's okay to get an abortion and it's not going to be scary, that there's going to be a human being to help guide you through it, again, in a way that's compassionate and empathetic and dignified. Did anybody else want to contribute their thoughts to this question? What are some of the most rewarding but challenging aspects of doing this work?
I can hop in on that one. Definitely want to second everything Sabrina said there. Definitely for me, the most rewarding thing is at the end of somebody's, time at the clinic, essentially saying, wow, that was so much easier than I thought it was going to be. Because there is this, stigma out there in the world that these procedures are horrible, they're hard, they're, emotionally draining. And while that can be true for some people, it's also not in a lot of cases. And like Sabrina mentioned, that person's then going to go out and share their experience with other people. And that's really the goal, right? Is for this not to be so stigmatized in our world. As far as challenges go for me personally, one of the challenges I had was learning how to relate to everybody that comes in, whether it be on a religious matter, or whether it be somebody who comes in and they maybe don't believe in abortion, but they're there anyway because they know that they need the procedure. And I think it's a good challenge to have because it makes you put yourself in their shoes. It makes you take a step back and say, what are my biases? And what am I putting out there into the world? And really allows you to relate to people on a different level. And I think that helps across all of your life, not just being a doula. So, just being able to put yourself in their shoes and really seeing, what are they feeling? How are they acting? And making yourself feel the way that they would feel really helps you just kind of communicate and helps you help them the best that you can.
Thank you, Leanne. Sabrina, I want to go back and ask you, you volunteered for other patient health center programs. What makes being a volunteer abortion doula different?
So I'm also a clinic escort, and being a clinic escort and being in that program, I had a very limited view to what was going on inside. So it was very much a very literally just walking from the car to the door. And I myself I've never had an abortion and only got regular services at Planned Parenthood. So my hope, of course, is that I was leading someone into a safe, comfortable, compassionate space. But in reality, I didn't know. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know the reality. The hope was there that, the people inside were the people that I was leading, to. But remember, being a clinic escort on the outside, you're hearing the demonization, the scary, the stigma, the like, you are going to die if you go into there. Like the anti-rhetoric that I was exposed to, I was already trying to combat in my head, but it didn't have that concrete evidence that they were incorrect. So the moment I was presented the opportunity to be an abortion doula, I wanted very much so to see the reality of what was happening, which only concreted my belief of being pro-choice and being pro-abortion. And really now, without engagement, I think I was able to solidify my side and my opinion in the matter, and be able to use that out in the public. If someone was talking about it and someone was saying, well, trying to spread those misinformations and those stigmatizations, I was able to be like, have you ever seen that? Have you ever done that? Is this just an article you read, or have you been in the room? Because I've been in there, I've seen it, I've done it, I've seen it all, and be able to combat that. And then making sure that the people who listen to me, again, that is the same with the patients, also can take that, like, oh, I know someone who's an abortion doula and she's told me this X, Y, and Z. So it's a much more personable person contact, like Jennifer said. It's it's the most connected you're going to be with someone for a small amount of time, but it's going to make an eternity of difference. And you're part of their story now, whether they choose to tell it or not. You are part of their story, part of their life. And it was as fulfilling as being a clinic escort is, and having those short connections. This connection is on a whole other level. And it's really just helped me in my everyday life to know that I've made those connections and I'm part of these people's stories.
Thank you, Sabrina. I think that's a really beautiful way to also illustrate this work, is that after you do this training and you become a doula and you help these patients out, you are a part of their story. And we hope it's in a way that's lovely and beautiful and positive. So we just have a handful of more questions left. Brooke, I want to round out with you. What was the hardest part about becoming an abortion doula, and do you still face challenges?
Yeah, so I think my biggest challenge is the fact that I have also not ever had an abortion. In fact, I came into reproductive justice work through the infertility side, so I don't even think I've ever even been pregnant. And also, we started at Planned Parenthood, and Planned Parenthood tends to serve communities that don't look like me. And so I don't look like a lot of the patients and clients. And so while I feel that pretty much anyone who's going to be interested in this type of work has the structure and the bones, so to speak, of being an empathetic person, making sure that sorry, my dog's barking, making sure that I could come to every client, being exactly what they needed, I think was my biggest thing that I cared about. And it can still be a challenge, because you don't know, and someone's demeanor can change even, from the start to the end of their procedure, and you've got to be able to meet them where they are again and again and again, to be that safe presence during their procedure. I did also want to add a little bit and piggyback on the discussion of what it's like to be in the room. I was very hesitant to watch the procedure for a long time, and I kick myself for that now, because while, like Danae said, every case is different, the procedure tends to follow the same structure, the same kind of timeline. Like, they look very similar. And it made me a better doula once I started watching, because while I can keep my attention on my client, I'm also listening and watching kind of out of the corner of my eye, like, where are we? So I can prepare them for, this part's going to feel really intense, but keep in mind, this is like your body working with us. And it made me a better doula to like shed that fear. I'm not queasy about, anything, but I didn't know what I was going to see, because like Sabrina, I'm also an escort, and we see what we call abortion porn. And I didn't know really what an abortion would truly look like. So once I finally kind of like let that go and actually watched the procedure and kind of was able to, really be in the moment with the client more, I think it made me a better doula. So, if folks were out there listening and, concerned about what they're going to see, I think if you can get yourself out of that space of being hesitant to watch, I think you can find that you can be a better support person to your client.
Thank you, Brooke, and thank you to everyone on our panel for joining us this evening and for sharing a little bit about your motivation for why you're a part of this work. So unless we have any other questions from our guests who've joined us, I want to finish us off with one last question for the group. Why do you think abortion doulas are needed? We've obviously heard a lot so far, but just to round us out, why is it important to have an abortion doula? Abortion doula?
Can I
I,
go? I
you go first.
it's very quick. I just want to say I think we've throughout this conversation have highlighted on the importance of having an abortion doula and what it means to these people utilizing them. But I think one of the biggest things that it brings, aside from the support for the pregnant person, is the destigmat destigmatization behind this work. Um, I think the more we can talk about it, the more we can see it, the more we can do it, the more it is normal, the more we'll be able to build back what we want, to see, us have this candid conversation, or for patients to come around and seeing me and Keisha cuss at each other or we're running around like crazy. It's like, oh, okay, like that's like my mom and my aunt fighting or something like that, like it makes it normal. So to have these people that can just have conversations and remove the barriers for patients, I think it will help to build the community and the reproductive justice that we need and deserve. So just breaking down those stigmas, I think, again, aside from caring for the patient itself, is one of the biggest things of having doula work.
I absolutely agree with you, Danae. I think that we have to regain control of the narrative around abortion. Since Roe v. Wade, the antis have been doing a fantastic job about scaring people away from abortion and demonizing it. And the reality of humanity is that that's just not the case. People have had abortions for hundreds of thousands of years, and it didn't become this like whole big scary thing until extremists needed to weaponize it and gain control over communities. And so I think that especially now without Roe, we have to be able to talk about abortion in a way that's palpable and tangible. And also, abortion is happening in media all around us in ways that we're not talking about either. Like a couple of examples I can think of in my head. Game of Thrones, like they have abortions on Game of Thrones. It's alluded to, but it's very, very subtle. Reality TV, for example, I can think of a show on Netflix recently, and one of the cast members, she was pregnant. She lives in Florida and she didn't find out until after 6 weeks. And we all know that Florida has one of the most cruel 6 week bans. And so her talking about needing to leave the state to go and get her procedure. And she is a privileged, beautiful, affluent white woman with money. And so her talking about her experience in that setting, I agree with you, Danae, in that we have to change this messaging around abortion and what it is and what it means to access that. Does
Sorry,
anybody else want to share their thoughts? Oh,
really
sorry,
quick,
Danae, go ahead.
just want to reply to that. I think you bring up a good point of like what abortion is too, because you hear the word abortion and it's like, okay, I'm going into this clinic, I'm choosing to terminate my pregnancy, whatever. And that's fine too, but abortion is a general term. Like I remember when Chrissy Teigen, after Roe v. Wade fell, everything she had came out and was like, I had an abortion. And my friend sent it to me and she was like, oh my goodness, did you see that? And it was like, when she like went through her miscarriage or whatever with one of her pregnancies, and like once she read it, I was like, yeah, like that is also an abortion. Like you have like an abortion, it's just a general term for like there are different types of abortions. And so having the conversation, again, like you said, it just normalizes things, and like also educate people, because that's lost as well. People are like arguing facts nowadays, and it's insane to me, like fact versus opinion. But like an abortion is a general term, and knowing what an abortion entails is super important as well when caring for these people.
Yeah, I just want to say for, those who may be thinking about becoming an abortion doula, or, I think if you're a person who believes there's value in being of service to other people and to women and women in your community, this is the most impactful experience I've ever had. I have never left a day in the clinic thinking that there was something better I should have done with my day than show up for the people who needed me in those like small moments. And so I would just encourage anybody who is curious to try. And I think what you will experience is something that's truly life-changing. I mean, it is one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. And so I'm really grateful to be a part of this group and to be involved in this work. And I'm grateful to also be able to be a safe person in my community, because those who know I'm an abortion doula now, they know they call me. They have questions. They want to know where to go or what to expect or what do they need, or I want to make a care package for a friend. And I'm a known person who can be of support. And that's really meaningful too. That's really, really special. So I'm just really grateful for Keisha and Danae for letting me roll into clinic one day and just keeping me around all these years now.
I do want to add one quick thing, back to kind of Khadijah's question about, why are doulas so important. I think, a lot of us failed to realize that a lot of people come in and they don't have that support that maybe we have in our daily lives. People come in and they have no support whatsoever. So knowing that there's a doula there waiting for them, and that person is there to support them and only them, I think we fail to understand just how impactful that can really be until we see it, day to day in the clinic. Um, and while, the nurses have always done the jobs of doulas when needed, when there are no doulas there, the nurses are the doulas as well. We want to make sure that the nurses are able to focus on their medical side of the procedures. They shouldn't be having to take the time to, support people emotionally. And that's where doulas really are super helpful. And I think that that is very, very impactful, not just for the person, but hopefully, for the nurses as well, being able to actually focus on, what they're supposed to be doing.
I agree, Leanne. I like to tell clients that, once things get started, there's going to be a lot of folks in the room and they all have a job, and my job is you. My job is to be what you need in every moment during this experience. And I think that's just a really great thing because, like Leanne said, Keisha and Danae were holding that role before we were there. But yeah, especially once you are in the room and see what the nurses are doing, they've got their own job. They've got their own thing they were doing. And while they provided, I'm sure, amazing emotional care, like we are dedicated, that's all we have to do. That's all we have to do is make sure that that person feels supported and seen and valued in that 10-15 minutes and beyond. And I think that's a really, really special thing.
I'm just going to add one more thing to that, since we were part of the first kind of
Sabrina, real quick, I'm
Oh
sorry.
yes, I was going to say, if you wanted
uh,
to speak to what.
No, I'm gonna go last because you guys keep bumping me, so that's okay. I was gonna say poor Jennifer has been trying to raise her hand since like
Oh
10
yeah, there
minutes
you
ago.
go.
So
Jennifer.
after Sabrina, please let Jennifer go, and then Juanita just raised her hand.
It's all good. So I was just gonna say that one of the things that you realize after you've done it as long as we have is that there's a before doulas were at the clinic at the healthcare centers, and there's the after, and how essential those doulas have now become to the staff as well as the patients. It's the like the light goes like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here. And it's because we're, you know, we're doing a simple small task to make sure the nurses can do their charting, making sure the nurses can do what they need to do. So you become this essential spirit essence in the healthcare facility that serves, of course, the patient. The patient is central, but in being able to have that attention to the patient causes a ripple effect of positivity, just having a doula there in a healthcare center. So that's, you know, it's, yes, you know, important, but for us as doulas, but our effect is much larger than just the patient.
The only thing I am going to add, which is essentially just mirroring something and that everyone has said, was that I think what can make the training comprehensive is that not only do we explore what happens in the clinic, so there's the clinical component, there's sort of an introduction to somewhat of the medical component, which touches on some of what Brooke addressed, but it's also about how do you connect with the individuals from the minute that they walk into the clinic. So it's really from a start to finish. It's walking in the clinic. It's being with the individuals when they're sitting in that waiting room, whether it's a medication assisted abortion where they might have to sit for a number of hours. So it's being with them even when they're not actively engaged in a procedure, but they're more sort of passively engaged in a procedure. So I think the training, when we have questions about what is the training like, it's addressing a clinical component, but it's also addressing how can we be with that patient, with that client from start to finish. And it's really being an anchor for that individual. It's being someone that they can turn to have questions, and then we can go seek the answers to the questions. So that's just kind of what I wanted to just sort of throw in there. And I'll pass it on to Keisha.
I think
Keisha?
Juanita, well, excuse me, I think Juanita had something, didn't you? Or
I
no?
did. I just wanted
Okay.
to mention quickly, the reason this work is important is when you think of the word doula, at least in the experiences that I've, come across talking with people, you think of the word doula and people instantly think of motherhood, childbirth, and they put that aspect of it on a pedestal, and it's like glorified, and it's like, oh, water births, and it's almost like this, fabulous situation that people have created in their minds. And I feel like people do forget about those, not necessarily who need to go to a clinic for an abortion by choice, but there are people who have ectopic pregnancies. There are people who have other experiences where they do need an abortion. And I feel like the stigma around the word abortion is that a person does not want to carry a pregnancy to full term, so they're going to terminate or get rid of that pregnancy. Before I met this group of people, I wasn't able to say out loud that I've had an abortion. For 15 years. I've walked around with that internalized. And it wasn't until I met this group of people where I could openly and confidently say, yes, I've experienced that. And with that, you take it and you bring it into that room when you're, making that moment with your client. And a lot of them are, I feel so stupid, I feel dumb, I make bad decisions, and they just beat themselves up over and over and over sitting there with you. And being able to confidently say, well, listen, I've experienced the same thing. I was that person. I internalized it for 15 plus years, but guess what? Now you don't have to. You have the ability to sit here and say, and no, you did not make a bad decision. It's okay that you had sex. It's okay that you met someone and you liked the person for a brief second. That is okay, because no one knows the outcome of anything that we'll do. So no, you're not stupid. You didn't make a bad decision. And being able to just relate to your clients and share those experiences with them from a realistic standpoint, not necessarily like, oh yeah, I totally understand, but being able to really and truly connect with them and let them know, like, no, you're not stupid. This is life, and you don't walk out of here and let what happens today, stick inside of you for the rest of your life. being able to tell people that and give that back to them is such an amazing thing.
Amen to that. Um, I was gonna just say, since everybody's gone around, I have my little notes here. I want to make sure that I mention that our abortion doulas do more than just abortions. We're talking about in clinic procedures, but they are also present or can be present for difficult IUD placements or IUD removals, because sometimes we have patients that have been traumatized by IUDs, because there was a time that they were not offering sedation or any type of pain medication. And as we know, it can be very uncomfortable. Studies have shown that having an IUD placed can be painful. So we can offer doulas for those services. We can also offer doulas for pap smears, because we unfortunately have some patients that have had trauma, sex-related trauma, and having the idea of having a pap smear is terrifying to them. So we can offer doulas for those services as well. Also, one of the things that I really wanted to do when we worked at Planned Parenthood, but we never were able to get it off the ground, was to assist patients with pill abortions, which is where this whole idea started from in the first place. Because as Danae mentioned earlier, when Roe was going to fall, they were talking about sending patients to Mexico to get the pill abortion. And the Mexico providers that we were working with were not using professional medical staff. They were using doulas only to help them. And they had like a 99% success rate with their pill abortions. And one of the experiences that we have seen time and time again is that a lot of times things are missed when patients come in. They miss steps when it comes to the pill abortion, or they didn't completely understand the instructions. So that leads to more failed pill abortions that have to turn to in-clinic procedures. And so we feel like having a doula to not necessarily, tell them what to do, but they have the paperwork right there in front of them. It just would take a doula to say, hey, you know what, let's turn to page 5 and see, let's review what it says about this step that you may have missed. And so we will also be offering that. When you guys were talking about I think it was Danae that was talking about the stigmatization, the stigma. Now you got me messing up the word. The stigmatizing of the word itself, abortion. It made me think about our ancestors, which for me was a really huge part about doing this work with Be at Peace, was because our ancestors were doing abortions back during slavery for obvious reasons. Either they didn't want to become pregnant and bring a child into the world that was going to, be succumbed to misery and the things that they endured as slaves, or they didn't want to bear the slave master's child. And so they were using herbs back then, because they didn't give us medicine. So they didn't have access to medicine. So they were using herbs, to expel the pregnancy. That is a form of abortion also. So as we all stated, this is not something that is brand new. It's been happening for long time. And people do have different reasons, why they have to have an abortion. They may have had a miscarriage, and all the products didn't expel. So now they have to come in and, have an abortion procedure. It's just, to me, it's like, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they have to have one, or they've chosen to have one, and that's all I need to know. And so when you ask the question about why I feel that this work is so important for me, it's about love. And also having the decision to make these choices for yourself. No one else should have the choice to tell you, or have a place to tell you what you should be doing with your body. That is a personal choice, that you should be able to make. Like Juanita, when I was 17, I had an abortion, and I did not feel like I had a choice in the matter. I felt like I was told, this is what you're going to do. And just like Juanita, I lived, I don't know how many years, a long time, until I started working at Planned Parenthood. that I became free of that, to be able to say out of my mouth, yeah, I had an abortion. So much to the point where, when, I didn't know how I was going to tell my kids that, because, one of the reasons why was because their father was the father of that baby that I aborted. So that meant that I was going to have to um, somewhat say to them that I was a hypocrite because I raised them to not have sex before marriage. And here I was, in the backseat of a Buick. So, I mean, and that's the truth. Sorry, Michael. I hope he doesn't hear this. But yeah, I mean, so I got pregnant, and that was dumb, and was walking around, for 3 months, almost 4 months, didn't even know I was pregnant. Why? Because I was 17 years old. I mean, who's thinking about that? So at any rate, I just feel like, because of that, no one should be walking around with that type of bondage, and feeling like they're a terrible person because they did this, and and that should not be a defining moment in their life. And that's what I would often tell patients. This moment right here should not be a defining moment of the rest of your life. And if anything, you can take this, and now this is a story that you're going to now take to someone else and help someone else who's going to be in your situation. So I think the reason why I think having a doula is so important is because of love. Everyone deserves to feel loved. And I think it was Juanita who said, not walk out of there feeling dumb, stupid. I made a dumb mistake. We've heard it all. I'm going to hell. God's not going to forgive me. Or people, young girls who would say that they couldn't tell their mom because, the mom's going to put them out the house. I mean, you name it, we've heard it, we've seen it. And so that is what motivates me, to do this work. And I get a lot of gratification and feel very proud. I'm not, before I used to be like, oh, you can't say the word abortion, or what are people going to think when I say I work in abortion care? Now I don't care. I really don't, because I know that this is my purpose in life. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's what gives me gratification. And then, oh, I'm almost done. Thankfully, we finished in time, or early. I wanted to say, Brookie, where's Brookie? Oh, that I love all of our doulas. I really do. I think that people don't know, because we didn't mention it in this, that this is volunteer, that you all are not being paid for the time or the effort that you put into what you do, into what you're doing. And there are times that you all would be in the health clinic for several hours, maybe sometimes as long as Danae and I were in there. And that's a long time, almost 12 hours. And you weren't being paid for that at all. And then we would basically have to put you out because you felt bad about leaving us there. So I just want to say that I feel so blessed and so thankful that God has placed you all in my life, in our lives, and that I just can't wait to see where we go in this journey, because you all are the best. Seriously, no joke. And my battery is getting low, so that means I got to hurry up. And I pointed out Brookie because, and I think everybody will agree with me, Brooke was the little lost puppy. Brooke was so afraid and so timid. She was so scared. And to just see where I mean, for me, it brought tears to my eyes. I mean, to see where she was and where she came from. Everybody else may have been a little afraid or not know what to expect. No, Brookie was a little wet puppy and did not know what she was going to do. And I mean, she's right. She's spot on. I mean, she would tell the patients, I could literally turn my back and not have to worry about it, because I knew that she was going to tell the patient, okay, this is what's going to happen next. And now this is what, so just to see her self-confidence from where it was really amazing to me. So Brookie, I just wanted to say that to you. And then, and I
Thank
already
you.
said,
You never called me a wet puppy before, though.
sometimes things just spill out, but you know what I mean.
No,
Um,
thank you. I love you and I
so
appreciate your guidance.
So that's all I want to say is just thank you to all of you, Khadijah, for Sister Soldier, for you doing, what you do and keeping us all on track. I so appreciate it. Khadijah did the backdrops for us. I didn't even ask her to do it. She just did it. And Danae said that she liked the bumblebee, and that was my daughter Michaela's design. So thank you. Thank you for all of you. You're amazing. And of course, Danae, I love you.
Keisha, you are incredible. You are a wonderful leader. Thank you for visioning this. Thank you for ideating on this. Thank you for bringing us together. And I am equally just as excited to see the positive, loving impact that we're going to create for our communities. We're going to be a net good for patients and for the world. And again, I want to reiterate my gratitude for all of you for spending your Sunday evening with us. We will talk soon. Stay tuned. I hope you guys take care. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye.
Khadijah.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.
Are we start recording now? Sabrina?
Let me stop it.